What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr War Games, and today I am going to bring you our ban list prediction. Now I know everyone and their mum does a ban list prediction video, but I'm going to do it a little bit more in depth and I'm going to explain why each card on the list itself was specifically changed. This list is also a combination between myself, Donald and Joe as well, and probably shares a lot of similarity cards that a lot of you will logically see will be hit. Now what we've done looking at this ban list is we've taken the logical stance of the past two ban lists. Now the first one we had during lockdown didn't really do a lot, it just brought back cards that weren't doing anything and wasn't going to drastically change the meta. On the second ban list, all they really did was change cards that had been out for a long time and ban cards that had been legacy cards that had caused an issue in the current game. They also brought back cards like Rusty Bardiche if you're looking at stuff like promoting Phantom Rage. So we'll be looking at cards that will logically promote Blazing Vortex because I believe Blazing Vortex and Legendary Collection 2 will be the only sets that we'll get before another ban list, which could possibly fall in March. And in March, of course, we get Ghosts of the Past, which will also bring the opportunity for Konami to reprint cards as well, meaning that that will be the next kind of stance point where they could go, right, okay, now we can unleash some cards that have been on the ban list for a long time and reprint certain ones as well. So with that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you do not miss out on any more Yu-Gi-Oh content. Now obviously the ban list is due to drop no sooner than the 15th of December, which is Tuesday next week. That means that Konami could drop the list anytime from the 15th or even sooner, all the way up to the new year, because it's no sooner than the 15th of December. Keep that in mind, there is no designated deadline date. Now, I don't see a lot of cards actually being nuked in core decks themselves, but I do see a lot of legacy cards being able to get the chop in order to allow the game to breathe a bit more. I still think, and exactly like I said with the first ban list prediction during lockdown, that this is the period where Konami should be looking at the list and going, right, while people are all at home, while there aren't massively competitive events, let's start unleashing some cards. Maybe this would be the best period for Maxx C to come back to free so that people could test it with Maxx C, and then we can now understand and everyone will be on the same page if they're saying, no, Maxx C is still wrong and not right for the TCG, or yes, okay, Maxx C is what puts the format back in perspective. Now, I will ask that question and answer it towards the end, along with what Joe and Donald said as well. You will be able to find out what Joe and Donald said about the ban list on the podcast episode that we have just released as well, the Big Bad Ban List for December 2020. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the ban list. Now, let's start with the most important section of the ban list, and that is the ban section, the cards you can no longer play in the card game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, we're going to start off with pretty much the obvious ones, in my opinion, and Joe's opinion, and alongside Donald's opinion as well. And they are cards that are generally just all and out oppressive. Now, what we mean by this, yes, I know there's a lot of you guys going at home going, yeah, but you can get your outs to it, you can draw this, you can draw that. True, but in a 40 card deck, you need to draw this particular out, which may be played at 3, or if you play 2 versions of the out at 6, or you're not going to be able to have an entire turn. Now, those particular cards are going to be VFD, so True King of All Calamities. We're also going to have, of course, Zexal, and we're also going to have the Buster Dragon. Now, why these 3? Well, Buster Dragon says no to the extra deck, VFD says no to being able to play your cards and attack, and Zexal says no to any card effects, but you can still attack. So they're pretty much doing the same thing. Now, Joe on this stance was actually saying he wants VFD to go to 1. In my opinion, there's no point, because if VFD survives, if VFD was at 1, okay, VFD shuts your opponent out for 2 turns. Now, you look at the deck that is abusing it the most, and that is Virtual Worlds. I personally don't feel Virtual Worlds will die if VFD goes, because I've actually seen them play incredibly well without it, and can be very aggressive. Their main Synchro being a full-on Macrocosmo that can loop itself, and their trap card is just as strong. So without a legacy of VFD, like Block Dragon, the deck can still perform. It doesn't kill any decks, and it just takes a degenerate card from the game that no longer needs to be in here. The same can be said about Zexal as well. Now, Zexal is a little bit harder to produce, and you can attack over it. However, if you do get the Zexal lock resolved, your opponent has to have a normal summon monster that can do 2,100 damage, and they can't use any card effects. That's no Evenly Match, there's no Lightning Storm, that's no Rogeki, no Dark Hole, no way of clearing the board off, unless you've opened up an Infinite Impermanence, which still some people don't actually own because the prices are ridiculous, even though it's on like its 4th or 5th printing. I will not be surprised if in OTF 15 we get an Ultimate Infinite Impermanence, which I would love, by the way. So Konami, if you're watching, I'm in perm OTS 15, just saying. And then, of course, the Buster Lock. Now, the Buster Lock, again, a lot of people argue about and go, yeah, it's not that bad. As much as I would love it to stay for Danny, who is a Buster Blader player, and I would love it to stay just for Buster Bladers in general, no. So the reason that this is such an issue is not just the fact that it goes, right, okay, cool, I'm going to equip to a monster, and you can't access the extra deck, but it goes, I'm going to equip it to a 3k base monster that's now going to go up to 4k because it's been given an extra 1000 attack, and the monster it's equipped to is an Omni Negate. So even if you have Lightning Storm, Twin Twister, Cosmic Cyclone, anything like that, you're still not going to be able to play in your extra deck. And with a lot of decks right now, there's very few that can produce boss monsters on the board without going to the extra deck. You look at stuff like UAs and you look at stuff like Monarchs. Now, I'm sorry, that's like a very, very small amount of decks. Now, unless you were to open up, and you need to open up multiple cards, keep this in mind as well. If you open up Dark Ruler No More, great. You still need to open up Dark Ruler No More and a way to get rid of Buster Dragon and then build your board. You still need to open up Dark Ruler No More and maybe Great Beast Alphen to bounce the Savage so that they lose the Buster Whelp. It is still an incredibly dangerous card to have in the game. It is still, like, you look at all the boards that are producing it. It's not just a random board. It's not like, here's my 1000 attack monster and I'm going to equip it with a Buster Whelp. No, it's a, here's my Omni Negate monster with 2 more Omni Negates next to it with a Buster Dragon. So you can understand why those 3 are on the guaranteed they need to go list. Now, the other ones that were kind of questionable that floated around this area were Joe suggested Herald of Arclight. Personally, I don't want that to go. I don't think it's as easy to produce. I think there's combos that lead into it being easy, but I still think it's a necessity for rituals. It's also a necessity as a play. Yes, being a macrocosmo is difficult, but the big difference with Herald is you can get a monster above 1000 attack and attack it and get rid of it. I agree with Joe. I think maybe it could go to limited or semi-limited, but not on the ban. We've then, of course, got Guard Dragon LP. Now, LP is one of them cards that's been floating around the area. I don't know how I feel about this one. I think, yes, I agree. It's an incredibly powerful card. Do I think that it could be played at... I mean, I don't think there's any point in making it a 1-of or a 2-of or anything, because I don't think there's going to be a time where you're going to want to play multiples of it in your extra deck. So it's one of them cards that's either banned or don't touch it. I do think it's too strong to stay unlimited, so in my personal opinion, it is going into the banned column. Then, of course, we've got ourselves Halley Firebrax. Now, Halley Firebrax is an interesting one for me personally, and it was also an interesting one for Joe and Donald. Yes, Halley Firebrax is an issue card, but it's not himself that's... It's what he then leads into. The fact that he can lead into many a combos, many a plays, is both a good thing and a bad thing. It's really good for the rogue deck strategy. Like, I'm talking about really fun decks. You look at, like, TGs. You look at possibly Yang Zings. You look at maybe even Heroes if you want to go down that route. The fact that he's just a utility card that gets everything going is great. But I think we've lost way too many tuners to Halley Firebrax to make it stay in as the way it is. Now, my only argument against Halley Firebrax is, again, we still haven't, apart from remote duels, we still haven't actually been able to use Halley Firebrax at its max potential. And keep in mind, we didn't get Halley Firebrax with Summon Sorceress like the OCG did. I could see Halley Firebrax surviving at least one more list. I think there is another tuner you could probably sacrifice in its place. Whether that will happen or not, I don't know, but it soon remains to be seen. The dog either agrees or disagrees. Then let's move on to the last kind of card. And again, this was a card that I brought up, Joe and Donald, more so Donald will agree with because he doesn't like being hand looped. And that's, of course, Smoke Grenade. Now, Smoke Grenade, in my opinion, is just one of them classic cards in the sense that it shouldn't be, like, Konami do not like hand loop decks. Konami do not like, they don't like to promote stuff like that. Once it happens, they tend to get rid of it. And I think the only reason it didn't get banned on the previous list was because they had already decided to print OTS 13, which had it as a super. But now that they've done that, quite like they did with Mermaid getting a secret print in the tins, I could possibly see them going, right, let's get rid of Smoke Grenade. I don't think losing Smoke Grenade kills any particular decks. I think Infernoble Knights is still incredibly good, and you're only playing it at 1 anyway. So losing Smoke Grenade doesn't kill any deck, it still allows it to produce and play. Zexal, again, losing Zexal doesn't kill a deck, because you can actually turn that into the Megalith Link 3, or Link 4 I believe it is, the Infinitrack, and still do a defensive play with that. Buster Dragon doesn't kill a deck, it just makes the Buster Blader deck a little bit less lockout, but still incredibly powerful. Like, just being able to get the Dragon lock is bad enough. Even if you can go into the extra deck, you still need to get a monster that can either beat over Buster Dragon or the Buster Destruction Swordsman fusion, and that's difficult on itself. So that's our ban list. Our overall pretty much 6 cards are sitting in there, 6 to 6.5, 7, depending if you put Hulk in there or if you put Smoke Grenade in there. Now let's move to our limited section. Now, limited section, I disagreed with Joe and Donald partly on this one, and they banned Miscellaneous. And I said, no, you can't ban Miscellaneous. Miscellaneous, yes, is a broken card. If that card didn't state dinos, it would be banned instantly. In my opinion, if you had a card that said, send this card from your hand to the graveyard, and it was searchable, so let's say, I don't know, let's say it was a warrior, or let's say it was a dark, or anything like that. If you could search it, and it said, send this card from your hand to the graveyard, not even discard, send this card from your hand to the graveyard, this turn, your monsters are unaffected by your opponent's activated effects during the main phase. Broken. Like, that effect on its own is annoying. But then it's like, oh yeah, banish this card from the graveyard to banish this card from the graveyard and X amount of cards equal to a level and summon that monster from your deck. That's crazy. Just imagine going, okay, banish Miscellaneous. I know, like, there's not a lot of great level 1s out of the dinos. Like, the Archosaur makes the deck even better. But what I'm saying is, don't ban it, limit it. Put it back to the way dinos, because dinos were still playable with it at 1, just not as consistent. But if you limit the Miscellaneous, but still keep the Jeweled Beast, they still have that play to run. But once they've made that play, they're then not able to repeat the protection of Miscellaneous. And they do have to be a little bit more cautious of, right, let's play Miscellaneous. And again, the same argument kind of comes around is, yes, okay, there's ways to stop it. DD Crow and Call by the Grave. But we don't have Call by the Grave at 3 anymore, because initially they're taking it out to help promote Crossout Designator, which could have come off on this list, because Crossout Designator doesn't come back into March, but that's a different story. So yeah, to me personally, Miscellaneous does need to be hit, does need to go to 1, rather than being banned. That's just in my personal opinion. Orcust Harp Horror. Now, Orcus are still an incredibly powerful deck, and Rusty Buddies coming back makes no difference. Right now, if they go off, they are still very, very powerful. The issue is they are lacking a huge amount of consistency, which Harp Horror instantly going from 3 to none really, really hurt the deck. I think it would be about time to give Harp Horror back to 1 just to see how the deck works. Again, this is, in my opinion, the best time to release cards like this. And what I'm going to come off the back of Harp Horror is you can also look at stuff like Thunder Dragon Colossus. Now, Thunder Dragon Colossus, again, the OCG has this. The OCG are allowed to play with this. One of the biggest issues that I've got against it is that there is a splashable card called Nemesis Corridor, which is a Thunder, which allows you to recycle one of your banished monsters to special summon it. So if your deck banishes in any capacity whatsoever, whether it be through Allure of Darkness, whether it be through just general banish plays itself, they can technically make a Thunder Dragon Colossus, which can of course be protected in a sense as well. But that being said, I still think that Colossus is maybe a little bit easier to get out of. However, you've kind of got to look in yourself and juxtaposition the two. Is if we're saying get rid of VFD and Zexal, but have Colossus, it's a little bit unbalanced in that sense, because Colossus is a walking, talking floodgate that can protect. Now, I'm not saying a lot of people are going to go and pump in Thunder monsters or cards to protect the Colossus. Colossus can be turned off with an Imperm as well, the exact same as Zexal and everything else, but it's still an annoyance to deal with. There's a 2200 defender, 2600 attacker, and coming off the base of one particular card, that card lets you recycle one of your banished cards. Not to mention, if you were to put in a full Nemesis engine, you've got the consistency plays a little bit more as well. It would be nice to see how it fares in the current format and how it changes, especially in a format where dinos are running rampant and Drone Lockbird is one of the most powerful hand traps in the format. If you're able to put a Colossus on that, it does mean a little bit difficult to play. But it'd be interesting to see. I think it's one of them ones where you dip your foot in and you're either like, yes, this works, or no, it doesn't. You ban it straight away. The next one. Now, I'm just looking at my list here in front of me. I can't even read part of my writing. Good start on that one. Oh, there we go. Mirage Stalio. So Mirage Stalio, I think... Now, I'm actually going to couple Mirage Stalio with a card that I think may come back to help promote Blazing Vortex, and that is Heavy Metaphors Electromite. Now, what I'm saying I'm coupling this with together is Mirage Stalio and Electromite. In a sense, pendulums and Salamangreats need a boost. Now, you're either going to get one or the other. This is what I'm saying. You're not going to get both. So, in my opinion, you're either going to get Electromite, which is more logical because of Blazing Vortex, or, as I've seen in quite a lot of people, Skullcrobat Joker. Now, Konami, again, they still don't like to give a lot to Pendulums, but they did just give them back Double Iris. I think Double Iris could possibly come back to 2, if not 3. But what I'm trying to say is I think Pendulums are going to get 1 card back. You're not going to get, in my opinion, Electromite and Skullcrobat Joker. I think the more logical one is going to be Electromite, and if they do give you back Electromite, they're probably going to take away something else, just to balance it back out. But Pendulums aren't really doing huge amounts. They're still a great deck, they're still very, very powerful, and they're always getting little bits of indirect support, and with Metaphors coming out, they might want to reveal or release Electromite back to 1, just so they can help promote that. So Electromite will kind of be like the Rusty Bardishas. The card is broken, or not broken, but the card is very, very powerful, and having it back to 1 will help promote the set, but might need to go back on the list at a close moment in time. With Mirage Stalio, the reason I say Mirage Stalio is I think, again, that's the more logical one to come back for Salamangreats, just to give them a bit more of a fighting edge. But if you don't get Mirage Stalio back, I think you could possibly get Circle back to 2, if not 3, or you could possibly get Gazelle back to 2. It's just basically saying that between me, Joe, and Donald, we kind of felt that Salamangreats have really dropped off the face of the earth right now. They could use with a bit of support, they could use with a bit of here go, have this back. Especially with Crossout Designator on the horizon, they'll be able to play a lot more through stuff like Nibiru without having to play the Trap Tricks Rafflesia to protect from that as well. The deck's still very, very good. I think it's got a very nice control aspect, a very nice OTK aspect, and it can be played both budget and with an extreme investment as well. So that was it for our limited list. Moving on to our semi-limited list. Now, again, there was a couple of little questions that bounced around between the semi-limited list and the unlimited list between me, Donald, and Joe. So, with Joe particularly, he said Cool Butter Grey come back to 2. Me, personally, I say unleash it. Let it come back to 3, but with that being said, I don't think Konami will change it at all, purely because we've got Crossout Designator. If Cool Butter Grey is ever going to come back, it will probably come back in the Banlist list between March and April time, in my opinion. Joe mentioned 1 for 1 because it helps promote Sun Avalons, but again, I think that's one that's going to come back later on. That'll be something that comes back during the March format when we get the Ghosts of the Past, just to help promote certain things like that. You then look at stuff like E-Telly. I think E-Telly should have come back on the last list to 2 because that would have helped promote not only Virtual Worlds, but it would have also helped promote the Mutants as well, which is a TCG exclusive. So if we're going to get more TCG exclusive Mutants coming out in Blazing Vortex, now could be a good time to give us back E-Telly to 2. That is also said as well that the next one is Light Stage. So Trickster Light Stage, again, I think one of the biggest issues with it was technically it's like a 1-card combo that can get you into any Link 2, and when you were getting Verte Anaconda into Dragoons, that was something that could be used and abused and just cheesed out quite easily. But I think Light Stage coming back to 2, in Donald's perspective, 3 is quite possible, quite logical. I could see it happening. Whether it will actually happen or not, I don't know. I could probably see it changing in position. But the semi-limit is the only one that, in my opinion, really sticks there, that makes sense, is, of course, going to be E-Telly and Light Stage, for right now anyway. Then we move on to the Unlimits. Now, we've been really generous on the Unlimits. We think there's going to be a lot of Unlimits. But these are just cards that Konami can just clear off the list. Just basically go, right, okay, let's refresh this list while we've got the period of time. So the Unlimits, we've got Totally Awesome. It didn't do anything at 1, didn't do anything at 2, let's have it back at 3. The exact same thing for ABC Buster Dragon. Again, didn't do anything at 1, didn't do anything at 2, bring it back at 3. And keep in mind, we've also got the Armed Dragons coming out in Blazing Vortex, and if you are a fan of Ojama ABC Armoured Dragons, then this could be a fun one to come back to 3 for you. We've then got Cool Butter Grave. I think we all want it to come back to 3, but whether it will or not, I highly doubt it. We've then got Graph and Seer. They all kind of make sense. Donald put Drident to come back to 3. I basically said to Donald, I said, if it was to come back to 3, would it actually get played? Like, right now, the deck doesn't rely on Drident. Drident's like an added bonus. I think if you had it at 2, you probably would, because you would go, right, okay, 1 chain can go up to Zeus, 1 chain can go up into Drident, Drident can do a little bit, and then Zeus. So I'm not too sure if it would actually get played, but it is something to keep in mind. As a joke, Donald said Mali to come back to 3, just so that every free ban list, Mali goes from 2 to 3, 2 to free and just keeps bouncing around. That was just a Joker one. And then Joe said Prankatops. And Darkness Metal. Now, Darkness Metal, I agree with. It's had its errata. It's not being used and abused. It's a hard once per turn. If you have it at free, it's probably going to be a bit of a brick in your deck. So bring it back to free is not an issue. I don't think it would be played at free. I think it's something that you can kind of unleash and let it be the way it will be. Prankatops is an interesting one. I kind of thought it would be nice to come back. It definitely gives you a budget option, but I think the reason, not the main reason that Prankatops is left at 1, but we've also got the Great Beast at Alphen. And what you've got to keep in mind with Alphen is, yes, it's a little bit better on the bounce effect, but it's not a quick effect. So I think that's what made Prankatops so much better, was the fact that it was a quick effect. They're quite similar, but obviously one destroys, one's a quick effect, one doesn't destroy, one isn't a quick effect. So you can kind of see why one is stronger than the other, but you can also see why one was put to 1 and one was obviously brand new to help promote the release in Phantom Rage as well. So it'll be interesting to see. I think maybe it's a little bit too early for Prankatops to be coming back, because it might kill the value of the Great Beast Alphen, but it'll be interesting to kind of see where it develops from there. So that was it from our major ban list in general. Most of these we've took a logical approach to. We've gone, right, okay, what is a legacy card that could be banned that is pretty much you can't play the game .deck. Not .deck, but you can't play the game .card. And obviously you're looking at VFD, Buster Dragon and Zexal mainly. We've looked at cards that we go, right, okay, what could you logically bring back? What could you logically bump up that is either no longer necessary to be on the list at all, or something that is no longer necessary or can really, really help promote Phantom Rage coming out. And that's why we've gone with stuff like Electromite, we've gone with ABC and Totally Awesome. So now the biggest question that always pumps around ban list time, Maxx C. So Maxx C is a hand trap. Send this card from your hand to the graveyard. Every time your opponent special summons a monster, draw a card. Yes or no to the TCG Yu-Gi-Oh format. Now, one of the big differences is this card in the OCG. They have it at 3. We only have it at 0. None. Nada. Now, the best thing about a ban list is, this is one thing you can always guarantee, is that 2 weeks, maybe even a month before a ban list, Maxx C prices will rocket through the roof. And a week after the ban list, they'll plummet back down. Just because, before the ban list, everyone's like, right, now's the time, let's sell it. Maxx C's coming back, let's go. And then the ban list drops and they go, Maxx C, banned, cool. So, my personal opinion is, if you are looking, I think it's valuable to have a Maxx C. One, if not a playset. There's common, supers, ultras, ultimates, secrets, whatever you want. If Konami were to bring it back, you can bet your bottom dollar it will probably be a Starlight in an upcoming set like Blazing Vortex. But my advice is, if this ban list does not release Maxx C, make sure you go and buy yourself a playset. Very, very cheap playset, just because you'll be better off to have it than not. But keep in mind that once it does come back off the list, the chances are Konami will reprint it. So you need to keep an eye on the set releases and go, right, okay, this set comes out near a ban list, could they possibly reprint Maxx C? Because the one thing you do not want to be doing in a format is being able to play the format without having Maxx C. If Maxx C does come back to free and you don't have it, you're in trouble. Because Maxx C, alongside stuff like Infinite Impermanence and Ash Blossom, are probably the staple hand traps that go in. Now keep in mind, Maxx C at current can only be stopped by your 1 copy of Call by the Grave, any generic negate, and your 3 copies of Ash Blossom if you choose to play them. Come March, when we get Blazing Vortex and we get Crossout Designator, technically Maxx C can be stopped by 7 cards. Now, I'm not saying that's justifiable for bringing Maxx C back. What I am trying to say to you is that it is possible that it could be around. Now, if it comes at 1, it's always that battle of whoever draws it first wins. But the idea of Maxx C is purely just to deter your opponent. Because your opponent's either going to go, right, I'm going to play the Maxx C challenge. If they break my board with their 20 cards in hand, fine. Or you're going to go, right, okay, Maxx C, I guess my turn kind of ends. I'll make it more defensive and pass. It'll be very, very interesting. You've got to keep in mind that the TCG game and the OCG game are completely different in both pace and play style, that it might not always be perfect. So, Joe said yes, bring it back to free. Donald said no, not at all. Donald is a combo player, keep that in mind. I personally say yes, bring it back to free, because we still need to answer the question. I think the reason that a lot of people are asking for it is because they don't know. It's been banned for so long. Even before then, we had it locked at 1 and locked at 2, that we haven't had a chance to have free Maxx C to see what it does to a format that we currently have, where people, yes, they're summoning 5 and they're getting the Beerud. But if you're not summoning 5 and you want to go in Maxx C, You kind of say, I'm saying bring it back at 3 to see how it does between this period. Keep in mind, we're not going to be playing competitive play. We're going to have 3 months of lockdown plays, remote duel plays, and everything else until March. So now is a good time to go, right, let's see how Maxx C can actually affect the current meta and the current games. Are people drawing way too much? Is Maxx C becoming too much of a big deterrent? Get rid of it. That answers your question that a lot of people have been asking for the past 3 or 4 years is Maxx C ready, or is the TCG ready for Maxx C? This will say no, we can stop asking the question for Maxx C for at least another couple of years until we go, right, okay, this format's too fast, we need Maxx C back. If you keep it banned, it is what it is. I'm not too far. I'm not saying I'm going to be disappointed if it doesn't come back. If it does, great. If it doesn't, whatever. We still play the game the way we've been doing it. But it's just an interesting thing that I just want the answer to the question. I want the answer to the question is the TCG ready for Maxx C? That's it. Now, a lot of people say no because of this. A lot of people say yes because of this. And that's the best thing about Maxx C is that there's a split decision. Okay, you can't tell me. I bet if you ran a poll, okay, you would get a very even, maybe 60 to 40 or 40 to 60 kind of split of saying yes and no. There's no 100% people saying yes, 100% people saying no. So it'll be interesting to kind of see if it does come back, how it kind of affects the game and how everything else develops from there. Anyway, I hope you liked this kind of video. I know it was a long one, but I wanted to explain each and every option to you guys. I wanted to talk you through some options. There's probably a couple of cards that we've forgotten. There's probably a couple of cards that we've missed off. But some of those will kind of come down to the logic of, do we think it's about time they can come back? Are they old legacy cards that aren't going to do anything when they come back? Or are they going to be cards that might like de-shape the meta? And we've tried to kind of look at it with our past 2 previous ones, because keep in mind, a lockdown ban list, yes, we've had 2 of them, but it's not a common it's not a common thing or a common occurrence. We've only had 2 lockdown ban lists, and the first one pretty much doesn't count. The second one was logical because it hit a legacy card. So we've got to take the logistics of legacy cards and the logistics of future products and put them in an educated ban list. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, subscribe for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, whether it be duels, combos, discussions, openings, the whole 9 yards. For now, as absolutely always, guys, stay safe and happy dueling.